everybody. Welcome to the California Avenue podcast. I'm your host, PDR, and I have a special guest host today. Her name is Kimberly Green. She is an entrepreneur, a CEO, and a financial consultant. Kimberly, can you tell us about being a Black woman and entrepreneur and the experiences that come with that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on this evening. So first I'll say, as a Black woman, you have challenges that you have to overcome, right? Because most times men are, in a sense, dominating most industries. And so whatever industry you're wanting to get into, you have to make sure that you do your research and your due diligence just to make sure that you're able to learn as much as you can about that particular industry. And then from there, you're able to determine what's necessary in terms of taxation and all of those things, and then move it forward step by step so you don't have to repeat those steps later down the line.
Wonderful, wonderful. And let me make sure I got your opening correct. She is the CEO and owner of Mendet Naturally, but she's also a financial consultant for what's the name of it again? I'm sorry.
Primerica is the company that I'm appointed with. And with that company, I also have licenses in 4 states. So I have a resident license in Louisiana, and I have non-resident licenses in Texas, Georgia, and Arkansas.
Oh, nice.
So thank you. So with that, we basically educate families on the importance and the value of having income protection or life insurance, because so many families are still relying solely on a GoFundMe or even a plate sale to bury their loved ones. And what we find, especially in these economic times, that that's just not the way to go. Because did you know that most people can purchase life insurance or income protection for their family for as little as $40 a month? And in some cases, it's even less. For the cost that you're going to spend eating out on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, you can skip a couple of days of eating out and you can make sure that your family is properly protected. Because here's the devastation: if something unfortunate happens to the primary breadwinner of that family, then that family has a chance of losing everything: the house, the cars. They can't eat, they can't participate in school functions or any of that. And some even end up homeless. So, could you imagine that there was an opportunity that you were able to take care of your family and you chose not to, just because you thought it was expensive, but it necessarily wasn't?
Yeah, that is very important. And for people that might, like, let's say for households that 40 is a lot for them,
Mhm.
like, what is the conversation for them?
Well, what we do is we sit down and first we determine how much income protection they need, right? And then we determine, okay, what is your income? What is your budget? Are there some things that you can scale back? And if 40 is a lot or it's too much, then we'll scale it back. We'll say, okay, if you're getting $150,000 in coverage for $40, then maybe you need 75. And we'll just scale it back to find something that's comfortable for their budget. That way, they at least have some coverage and they're not in a position where they have to use a GoFundMe or scrounge around or hope that your family is in a position to assist you, right? Because I've
Right.
had situations where they asked the family members and they were out of luck. So you
Mhm.
just don't want to put yourself in that kind of predicament. And I saw here recently that there was a celebrity that his spouse was asking for donations for the GoFundMe. So we can't always assume that it's just the middle class and, normal people. That sometimes the celebrities are in that same predicament. We just have to make sure that we expose the information enough and the education about it enough to make sure that they have what's required.
Wonderful. And, for your Mended Naturally, I really want to know about the origin of that. What made you want to get into, if I'm correct, this is skincare, right?
It is
Okay. What made you want
primarily.
primarily skincare? What made you want to get into that? Like, what was the inspiration? What was the process like? And also, and this might be a lot, and I can ask it again, but how
Okay.
do you balance that Mended Naturally, that brand, that company, and Primerica?
Okay. Well, I'm glad you asked that question. So, Mendet Naturally was created because my niece had eczema when she was 6 months old. And my brother brought her over. Her skin felt like sandpaper, and I wasn't accustomed to that. And he said she had eczema. They were giving her some medication. Well, in my opinion, it wasn't working, right? So at the time, my husband had adopted an organic lifestyle. So I had raw shea butter and those things at my disposal because he wanted us to use things that were more natural and safer for our skin. So I took the ingredients and created a formula, said, Lord, this baby skin is terrible. I prayed over my ingredients and I gave the formula to my brother, and he called me probably about the fourth day and said that her skin was peeling. And I said, that's okay. It's probably just treating whatever's causing it to be rough. And he said, no, I mean, it's really, really peeling. And I said, well, just keep using it because it's just shedding the layers. And so his testimonial was that his daughter Kinsley had eczema. She used the formula because back then it didn't even have a name, Portia. And so, and now she doesn't have it. And so I had created a gallon of it, and you have to think back then as a wife and a mother and a person who's working full time and having children and activities and things at the church, that was just on the back burner. And so fast forward, a lady that I know, she said, well, before then, Portia, we were thinking about a name for it because I had gotten a testimonial, and she used Right Guard's men deodorant. The long story short is it inflamed her armpits and they looked disgusting. And so she used the product, the formula, and it temporarily relieved the itching. And once she got her inflammation shot, it reduced that inflammation and it brought back her natural coloration. I said, well, will you do a testimonial for me? And she did, and it said, I highly recommend blank. Well, who knows what blank is? So we needed a name for the product. I didn't want to revitalize, rejuvenate. Mend was simple enough, but we couldn't just mend. We had to mend something. And Portia, I'm not sure if you remember this, suggested we call it Mendix. And when we put it in Google, it came up as something you didn't want to see. We just said, we're gonna just mend it, but it's MENDET. So now you have a word that's trade marketable as well. So I really am thankful for Mended because it has shown me just amazing results for not just eczema, but also for scars, surgical scars, burns, second and third degree burns, um, stretch marks, diaper rash, razor bumps, just a wide, vast array of things. And so the initial product was the Mended Naturally Daily Moisturizing Cream. And from that, um, we created the soap because I wanted it to be using a combination and not a chemically based soap with the cream or a chemically based cream with the organic soap. And so I was pushed to go forward December of 2011, and I went forward January 2012. We've been kind of moving forward since then. There's another product in the line called Fly Away. It's actually an all natural, DEET free insect repellent. And you would be surprised to know that on some labels of insect repellents, it says warning, hazards to humans. When you think about
Mm.
that, and I'm not sure people even take time to realize that your skin is an organ and you want to be cautious and careful of what you put on your skin. The last product that we have in the line is called Cleaner Hands Sanitizer. And this product came as a result of the pandemic and all of those, sanitizers that contain alcohol and aloe vera gel, right? That was pretty much the mix. And I said, my sister Kiosha actually mentioned doing a hand sanitizer because, of course, she knows that it's going to be natural. And what I stated was I didn't want to use alcohol and aloe vera gel because over time that's going to cause skin irritation, sometimes even hand eczema and those things. So we came up with a formula. I did do my research, due diligence for that. So now we have a total of those 4 products in the line. And so when you have a family, a husband, a child, children, work, all of those things, it's a challenge to make sure that everything gets the right amount of time. And what I've learned is as long as you continue to do whatever it is that you seek out, then it eventually comes to fruition, right? Because some
Mhm.
things get scratched off the list becomes shorter,
Mhm.
and children start driving and that kind of stuff. So it kind of frees you up from a lot of those responsibilities.
Mhm.
Now, I'm also a self-published author of the Win from the Beginning book. This was written in 2018. And it's just so amazing because before then, I'd worked in corporate America for about 20 years and I resigned like December of 2017. No, June of 17. So, what I'll say is if you find what your passion is and you make sure, even as a Black woman, that you strive to complete that, then that's the start. It takes the mindset to say, I'm going to do it regardless of what happened. If I'm sleepy, if I've had sleep, if I haven't, if I have support, if I don't, all of those things are required because sometimes you're going to look around and you don't have the support you thought you would have, right?
Mhm.
And even in those cases, I rely heavily on what the word says. It says, all that you've needed, I've already provided. So the Lord is saying that if I give something to you, He's gonna see it through
Mhm.
to fruition, right? He's gonna allow it to manifest. And so I'm thankful, so thankful for the Mendet Naturally skincare line. And even though you have the insect repellent and the sanitizer, it's still part of the skincare brand. And what I'll tell you is this: we currently have a 5.0 rating based on Google reviews, and we also have an A+ rating on the Better Business Bureau. So our clients and customers think that it's great, it's amazing. They've said some amazing things about it, and it just humbles me to know that the Lord has given me something that's great that I am able to share with the rest of the world. So I hope I answered
You
your
you
question.
definitely answered most of them. I do wanna know how you balance that between the Primerica, but before we get to that, where can people find the Mended Naturally products?
Oh, thank you. So Mendet is the website is mendednaturally.com, and it's MEND as in David naturally.com. And for people that are here locally, I have specialists who are trained to sell the product as well. And that way they don't have to pay the shipping. So thank you. How do I balance it with Primerica is your question. So the beauty of Primerica is I create my own schedule. Isn't that amazing?
Mm.
So here's the deal. If I schedule my appointments on Monday and Jade has an activity, then I just don't schedule appointments during that time. It's not like corporate America where you have to get permission and then hope that they're going to approve it. There's no one to tell me you can't be off.
Mhm.
Right? And so it's so freeing because it took that burden and that pressure of, oh, I really am ready to go on vacation, but oh, they may deny my vacation, right? So
Mhm.
then now you have to try to replan and reschedule and do all of those things. So all of that has been lifted. I'm not even in jeopardy of being laid off or furloughed or fired, any of those things, because
Mhm.
I work independently and my appointment is with Primerica. So what happens is, in terms of the balance, I'm able to control a large portion of that. Right now, there are some times where you have training and you have meetings and things of that nature. But for the most part, if I know that I'm having a date night with my husband, then I don't schedule anything during that time, right?
Mhm.
And it's the same with just with my children and all of that. I can just plan it. And as I continue to get promoted in the company, because currently I'm a division leader in Primerica, and I'm working towards
Mhm.
my next promotion in the next 90 days. And so it's not like the job where you're on it for 20 years and you hope that they're going to give you a promotion, even if you have education, even if you have tenure, right? You hope that they're going to see your worth, your value, and that
Mhm.
they're going to reward you for that.
Mhm.
However, I worked there 20 years, and I can tell you, most times it's not the case. So,
Mhm.
so I'm thankful for an opportunity where there's not a glass ceiling. There's
Right.
not a point where you're going to hit it and that's it. You can
Mhm.
go as far as you'd like to go if you determine that you want to have a team working with you, so you're not doing all of the work by yourself, or if you decide that you want to do it all by yourself. Either
Mhm.
way, the beauty of it is you can choose. And so as I've chosen that as well, I'm excited about even helping people in that aspect, because even as I came into that business, I didn't choose it. It chose me. And the story of that is it came up in my devotional. I was doing a devotion called Life Changes for Success, and insurance came up. And of course, as a mother and a wife and doing all these things with the children and then full-time job, you're not thinking about that. It's like, where's this even coming from? But
Mhm.
it kept coming up. And so I type it on the praise report portion. 2 weeks later, my friend called and she said she had a business opportunity for me. And guess what? It's insurance, right? So
Mhm.
of course, it's at the forefront of my thinking because it was just on the praise report. And we talked about it, and she said that she was making a lot of money. She felt like I'd be a good fit. So I said, well, we're going to pray about it right now. I didn't call my husband. I didn't let him talk me out of it. And
Mhm.
I didn't feel uneasy in my spirit. So I got started that day on a Friday. I went to class that following weekend, Saturday, Sunday. And the following Friday, I took my exam for the state and passed my exam for the state. So you see, it didn't take a long time to start that process and
Mhm.
move it forward. So while I'm waiting on my appointment and my license to actually issue, my regional vice president, Rodney Reed, came to my home from Grand Prairie. And he at the time was making $50,000 in a month, not in a year, in a
Wow.
month. That's what
Mhm.
I said. No, I really didn't. I said, he don't make $50,000 in a month, right? Because that's how we are.
Mhm.
And he said, let's look at it. And I appreciated his transparency. And he showed me that he was already at like 46K for the month. And he also pulled up a couple of individuals that I know who are also in Primerica in Shreveport, and he couldn't fabricate their numbers on the spot, right? So at that point, I understood that it was legit. It was
Mhm.
something that you could actually um, gain financial freedom from. So he called his direct upline and she welcomed me to the team. And her name is Peggy Hightower. And Peggy at the time was making $700,000 in income annually. And I said, wow to that. I did,
Mhm.
because I mean, I was wild. And not only that, but she became the first African American female $1 million earner in the company. And that's huge. And furthermore, she's on my team. I call it my team still. She's on my team. So that
Mhm.
means that if she was able to do it, again, we're talking about Black women, if she
Mhm.
was able to do it as a Black woman who came up in this business back in a time where you didn't have a cell phone, you didn't have social media, you had to do all of your apps on paper. And trust me, I've done one, and I don't know how they were doing all of their apps on paper because it's a
Mhm.
process. And she was able to achieve that great feat. That means that I definitely would do it, right? Because I
Mhm.
have more resources. And so here's the thing, Portia. They were thinking about me when they created the $1 million ring, because as you get up in rank, you get
Mhm.
jewelry, right?
Mhm.
Well, the $1 million earner ring is ruby. And that's my birthstone. I said, oh,
Wow.
you got to be kidding. So
Mhm.
they also have an emerald one too, right? It's like when you make, I think, $3 million, $3 million earner. I said, so you have to at least get a red ring, green one, because I'm Kimberly L. Green, right?
Mhm. One, I want to back up a little bit. You did mention Shreveport. For those that don't know, she is based in Shreveport, Louisiana. And can you give us a little bit of that backstory from
Well, And in terms of living here, I've lived here
Mhm.
my entire life. I've never left. I didn't even go off to college, right? I went to school at LSUS, and that's because my mother was a single parent, and my older sister had gone off to college, and I just saw that pressure it put on her as a single parent to make sure that her needs were met there. And I
Mhm.
didn't want to put her in that same predicament. So I didn't go off to school. My younger sister did also. Kiosha, she went to Southern University.
Mhm.
And so I've lived in Shreveport all my life. I've had several experiences. Like I said, I worked in corporate America 20 years. I do
Mhm.
have a bachelor's degree in finance. And so it's so funny how things come full circle because before I resigned from corporate America, I had applied for a vice president's position, and I was actually under consideration for that position. And that just meant that I would be over my immediate boss and his, right? So you would
Mhm.
move up 2 levels. And you know how normally we're just looking at the pay increase, not necessarily the responsibility and the
Yeah.
late nights that you're going to have working in that kind of position. And what happened is the Lord spoke to me and said, "Why do you want to be a vice president when you're already a CEO?" And at that
Mm.
point, I realized that he had given me something so great that if I just continue to follow in his way that he's already laid out for me,
Mhm.
that I'll see that the VP position and salary, I'm going to surpass that with less headache, with less hassle. Because again, you have to think about a Black woman going into a predominantly Caucasian male entity,
Mhm.
and how things that are normally done under the table maybe would
Mhm.
be exposed, because again, I work by doing things ethically.
Right.
So what I'll say is I'm thankful that that was blocked from me. I
Mhm.
thought about it, several times after I didn't receive it, and then I was thankful that I didn't
Mhm.
receive it, because in accounting, if you are looking for 25 cents, you have to find it. And however
Mhm.
long it takes to find it, you have to find it. And
Mhm.
so I just think about, I'm in a better place where I have peace of mind.
Mhm.
I'm able to, like I said, just, work on my businesses and make sure that I still have time to devote to my family, to my children, to, even my parents, my mother and my mother-in-law and those things, because those things are important. Like, I had a situation at my home, and I'm thankful that I was able to be here to kind of ward off it being worse than what it was, because I was available. I was free to be here. And I know that kind of sounds weird, but it's the truth, because I remember being in corporate America, they don't care what your life is. They don't care about what you
What's
have
going
going
on?
on.
Mhm.
And so if I had something scheduled when I got off, if you say, "Oh no, we have mandatory overtime and you have to be here," then how long do you want to be in that predicament?
Right.
Right? And so I had to start thinking about it as the blessing in disguise. Now, of course, I
Mhm.
hadn't planned to resign. So things just kind of happened and it unfolded and the time had come. And
Yeah.
so what I'll say is, any woman, Black primarily, who who's wanting to know the formula for making it work,
Mhm.
you have to have a relationship with the Lord, with God, with, I mean, because you're gonna be in a position where there are times where you don't understand it.
Mhm.
You've done so much and it seems like you are just on the hamster wheel
Mhm.
being still. But in reality, all of those little things that you've done over time, they will compound, and then you'll see the full manifestation of what it is. So I encourage women, no matter how hard it gets, if you have to cry, cry. If you have to scream, scream, but always keep going. Because here's how I look at it, Portia. Think of it like a car, right? A
Mhm.
parked car is not going anywhere.
Mhm.
You can push it, you can put a parked car. It's not going
Mhm.
anywhere. And then if you're in reverse, you're moving slowly in the wrong direction.
Mhm.
But if you're in neutral, you can't determine if you want to move forward or if you want to move back. But if you are in drive and you stay in drive, as long as you are in drive and have drive, because I like to play on words, then
Mhm.
you're moving forward. And as you continue to move forward without stopping and starting and stopping and starting, then you'll get to your destination. So imagine if you're taking a trip from Freeport to Dallas. That's like a straight shot on 20. But I have to stop at every exit. How long is that going to take? But if I just drive there, even just the regular speed, I'm going to get there in a couple of hours. So you have to determine how long do you want to have whatever the Lord has given you as your gift, as your passion. How long do
Purpose.
you want to just hold it? Yeah, as your
Mhm.
purpose. How long do you want to just hold it in your hands? How
Mhm.
long do you want it to be just yours when
Mhm.
it's intended for the world? Right.
Right.
And that's what I had to understand. And that's what I have to, even face right now. I can no longer say, I have all these things going on and I have this and that and the other. It doesn't matter. If I've been given, mended naturally to and it's for the world,
A
it's
vision.
time to give it to the world, right?
Mhm.
Because I've been chosen to do it.
Mhm.
I didn't set out to do it. It was given to me. The Lord gave it to
Mhm.
me. And so what has happened is this. Anytime I receive a testimonial and it just really just humbles me to know that the Lord gave me something so great that a
Mhm.
guy can be second and third degree burned and his hand looks like this.
Mhm.
And you can't tell that he's been burned at all.
Mhm.
And so when you have something of that magnitude, you have to ensure that it gets to where it needs to go. Because
Right.
because there are millions of people that have acne
Mhm.
and they have eczema, they have psoriasis, and they have burns, and they have scars, and they have all of these things. I'm talking about millions and millions of people.
Mhm.
And here's what I understand, Portia. When you have even maybe a pimple in your face, it's like it bothers you. And
Mhm.
it's just a pimple, just one little small dot.
Mhm.
Imagine if you had cystic acne and your
Mhm.
face is covered with red bumps all over.
Mhm.
That starts to affect your self-esteem
Right.
and it puts you in a mental state of being shunned, right?
Mhm.
And so if I have a product that can help with your self-esteem and restore you back to not just some form of normalcy in your appearance, but even in how you feel about yourself, then I've accomplished something. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
So when I say that I'm excited to share Mended Naturally and these products with the world, the same with the book. If you know that you are already a winner when you start a race, don't you feel better about it?
Absolutely. You see it through.
Don't exactly
Mhm.
because you're just like, hey, it doesn't matter if you fly past me, if you have these roadblocks and you knock things over in my way. The word says that I am the winner. I'm
Mhm.
already the victor. I'm more
Mhm.
than a conqueror. So when the win from the beginning came about, it said you're already a winner. You're
Mhm.
already triumphant. And so again, Black women, you're already the winner. All
Right.
you have to do is believe that you are in yourself. Change your
Mhm.
mindset to realize that you can accomplish anything that you set out to do with God's help. Because it says
Mhm.
all things are possible
Mhm.
if you only believe that it is. And that's the problem, Portia. A lot of women have been beat down mentally. They've
Mhm.
been mentally abused. They carry so much baggage and weight that they cannot even think of being great. But I'm
Mhm.
here to tell you today that you've been created to be great. You've
Mhm.
been created to do great things,
Mhm.
amazing things, extraordinary things, spectacular things. And unless you believe it, how
Mhm.
can you receive it? You
Right.
can't. You won't. So I encourage women today, even you as a young person, I'm excited for you and all that you're doing. It just warms my spirit to see you pursuing the goals and the dreams that you've set out to pursue. It's amazing to me. And like I said, whatever I can do to assist in that effort, I'm more than happy to, because that's what it's about. It's about lifting each other up, being a support, being the example,
Mm-hmm.
so the next person can see, oh, hey, Portia did that. Hey, Kimberly did that. So they're no different than me. They may
Mm-hmm.
have had different experiences. They may have had different feats and facets in their lives, but they're Black women just like me.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can do it, I definitely can. And
Mm-hmm.
so I encourage women just all over, go for it. What do
Mm-hmm.
you have to lose? The time is still going to go by. So do you want to be 60 years old trying to pursue it? Why? Do it now. The time is now.
Absolutely. I think that the hang up for, and because I've been there, I would say one of the hang ups in pursuing um, your purpose, which may not be working for someone else, is several different challenges that come into play. We talked about the support challenge, also whether or not you have faith. But even though one may know those are, one, you can't control who supports you and who doesn't. You can just continue to push through. But with the faith aspect, how would someone that struggles with that have um, a growth moment within that idea of spirituality and religion?
Well, part of it has to do with their environment. So
Mm,
if you're never in an environment where you hear positive things, then your mindset is not going to go automatically to positive things. So you have to hang around people that you want to be like. And that's why they say
mhm,
birds of a feather flock together, because if you are always with negative people, even though
mhm,
you want to be positive, that negativity is gonna it's gonna choke it out every time.
mhm,
I've never seen a rotten fruit turn one good, right?
mhm,
But
mhm,
if it rubs up against the good one just for a little bit, you start noticing, hey, I didn't know that there was a brown spot. Or where did this brown spot come from on this one? You see, so you have to put yourself in a position and hang around people that you want to be like. And if you are struggling to find that group, just reach out. There are several support groups. There are women who are business minded. I mean, on social media, there's a group for anything that you can think of, right? So
mhm,
just find that. Find people who are like minded, that are working towards your same goal, that have your same interests. In terms of the religious portion, there's a Bible app, right? You can start anywhere. You can search whatever it is that you need, that you're looking for. You can say guidance. You can say pathway. You can say assistance in business, and just see what comes up from the word. Because here's what I understand: the word is designed for us to encourage us, to comfort us, to be whatever it is that we need. If we need healing, there's information about healing. If you need confidence, think about those people who were called to do great things. And some of them didn't have confidence, like even Moses. He
mhm,
stuttered. And he was like, how do you want me to talk to these people and I stutter? I can't even understand what I'm saying. You see what I mean? So he had to let go of who he was and surrender it to the Lord. I saw this on a video on last evening with Deion Sanders. Primetime, he's turning Jackson State around, and my daughter's actually an alum from there. And so what he said was he kept running from it until finally he couldn't run any longer. When he went to Jackson State, that wasn't because he wanted to be paid as a coach there, right? Because he had plenty of money.
mhm.
But the Lord sent him there to show that he is not doing it, but that the Lord is. So you have to surrender some things to the Lord, whatever your baggage is. There's an exercise that I did to spiritually cleanse myself. And it required me writing down the name and whatever it was of anyone, as far as I can remember, who had done anything to me, right? Because we can't control how people treat us. We can only control our behavior. And
Mhm.
what happened is I wrote it all down. It can be emotional because you think about, all of that stuff that you have calloused in your spirit, in your heart, and now you're having to revisit it. But it's necessary so that you can live in the present. Because
Mhm.
without it, you're just carrying baggage along from year to year, day to day, month to month, and you're not truly free. So
Mhm.
once I did that and I prayed over the whole thing and I crumpled it up and I threw it away, there was a deliverance that I felt. Because sometimes you don't know that you're holding bitterness and animosity and malice and those things in your heart for people. And you have to deal with that situation first before you can truly surrender to the Lord and be utilized for whatever his purpose is in your life. So here's what I'll say. Women say, well, yeah, that's easy if you're not, in a relationship that's abusive. Life is about choices. Get out. If
Mhm.
you are in a relationship where that person doesn't value you, they don't respect you, they don't treat you like you are a queen as you are, get out.
Mhm.
And I've seen the stories and I've heard about them where people who attempt to get out, sometimes they don't make it. But you have to start with expectations when you go there. That guy has
Mhm.
to know what you will tolerate from the beginning. Otherwise, he's gonna try you. And depending on how he was raised and what environment he was brought up in, for example, if grew up in an abusive home, that's what he saw. And if his mother stayed, then he said, "Oh, well, that's okay. I beat her up, and she's gonna just say, 'Oh, I apologize,' or buy you a gift," and that's where we are. No, that's not why you're here, to be someone's punching bag and they beat you up today and say they love you in the next 20 minutes. No. And we have to stand firm against that because yeah, you love them, but do you love you enough to say enough is enough? I'm not going to undergo this type of behavior. And I know it's difficult because sometimes women are not in a position to lead. So women, black women, make sure that your affairs are in order, that if you ever need to leave a situation, you are prepared to leave it. Because
Mhm.
sometimes I feel like, well, where will I go? And I have my children and I have all my things. That's stuff that can be replaced. Your life is precious. You only get one life.
Mhm.
And if it's taken away and you could have avoided that, why wouldn't you? Right?
Mhm. And so how can we operate in a similar sense in the work environment where as Black people, we obviously get the short end of the stick in our experiences. It's climbing mountains every which way that we take. How do we stay strong as, I'm not even going to say just as Black women, but just as a Black people in
And you're not.
situations, hmm,
So
dealing
so
with
what I'll
work?
tell you is this, and I undergo. I mean, there were so many things that I experienced in that environment, and part of it is their expectation and their perception of who we are as a people is like low, right? They have a
Hmm.
low expectation of what our ability should be or what we should have and all of those things.
Hmm.
So we have to do it 10 times better
Hmm.
in order for them to acknowledge it. Not
Hmm.
just better or the same as them, you have to be 10 times better. So whatever you're doing in terms of your job working for a company,
Hmm.
be the best at it. Because often, even if you are the best, they may have you train their nephew and then let them be your boss, right? So if you know that going into a situation, the alternative is find something that you can do on your own and build it. Now, it does take exposure, it does take patience, it does take capital to do those things, but that's the only way that you fully control it. Because here's what I'll tell you. Meta, Facebook, laid off 11,000 people. 11,000. And that means that they had no regard for those positions. whatever they were. And I'm sure there are certain people that bore that burden more than others, mainly us, because that's the design and the dynamic of how corporate America
In
is run.
society.
It's run in most cases. And so
Mhm.
what you have to do is you have to say, when you go into an establishment and you put forth your best foot and you go through the interview process and you get hired, you have to determine, what is my plan if they lay me off? What is my plan if they file bankruptcy and close down? You have to have that, especially in these economic times, because companies are about the dollar. They're about profit. And if
Mhm.
they feel that there are too many people on staff that's, you know, creating a negative profit, then we're gonna let people go. Because you have to think about it. They're paying for your health care most times, your life insurance, and all of these other things. And
Mhm.
so you say, okay, well, if we weren't paying for all of these things, then we would have this much money saved, right? And
Mhm.
so in that, when that happens, the only thing that you can do is learn your job and learn the job of others that are outside of your job. Because if you have expertise in another area where your co-worker does not, that gives you a little bit of an advantage, right? So for me, going back to the application when I applied for the other position, I showed not only that I had been to school and received a degree, but I'd also worked in the company 20 years. So that meant that I was familiar with all of the changes and the software changes and the mergers and all of these things that had occurred in that 20-year time frame. I also had spearheaded a commission on membership and evangelism program where we were feeding, the elderly and sick and shut in on a monthly basis, where I was over a team of people. So I had other things on the resume that the other person didn't have. You see what I mean? So it kind of makes you stand out. So if they get rid of you, it's almost like, I sure don't want to get rid of her. You see? But the reality is this: they can and they will. And I live in a at will, state. So you can be hired or fired if they feel like it.
Mhm.
And you know that when you go to work. And so the only thing that we as Black women can do in those instances is just make sure that you always have an alternate plan. And I say that in terms of saving, in terms of investing, in terms of having knowledge about things that you normally wouldn't, because you rely on someone else to have that knowledge for you. But now you're in a period where you have to know these things yourself. If you don't, it's going to be to your own detriment. So just to speak to it, even in the workplace, and I know I've worked there, I've been there, and I've seen it where it's a culture. And if you don't fit in that culture,
Mhm.
which I kind of didn't because I'm me, but if you don't fit in that culture, it's like you can get overlooked
Mhm.
because they expect that you're going to be a certain way and you're not going to be as verbal, or you're going to allow things to happen that you don't verbalize your opinion about, and
Yeah.
they don't like that in most cases. And they'll say, that you get a label, then you're
Yeah.
angry, or all of these different things. So what I'll say to you is, do your best job while you're there. So if ever you have to leave, or they fire the person or furlough you or whatever the case may be, in your heart of hearts that you did your absolute best. and
Mhm.
and do it with pride, do it with excellence in mind. And that's the difference. Because when you leave to go to the next place, it won't matter what they say,
Mhm.
because even if they try to diminish what you've done, they really can't, because you were always about excellence. And that's what happens most times with us in business. And I've seen it so many times, from the hospital to restaurants to all things. We just have a different appreciation, most of us, for doing the job right and doing the job well.
Right.
Whereas some other people are just getting by half doing it, just like a day's go. And then those are the ones that get promoted. I've seen it. So what you have to do is understand, I'm here to do this job temporarily until I elevate to my next level or fulfill my next purpose. And as long as you think of it like that, then all of the shenanigans that occur, they won't weigh on you so much, because you know that this is not my final destination.
Right. I think that's great advice. Before we wrap up, because I know you have to go soon, with the Primerica, is there any information you can provide that people can reach you for those services?
Absolutely. So I'll give my number. My name is Kimberly L. Green, and don't leave the L out. And my number is 318-946-4563. We normally do Zoom meetings for people that are actually out of town, so that's not an issue. I would love to hear from you to just go over what you have, because one thing that I want to point out, Portia, is that people need to make sure that they have insurance that they own outside of work, especially in a time like this where people only have it at work and they're laying off and furloughing, and businesses are shutting down. So that means that you're without coverage. So if something unfortunate happens, then now you're in a period where you're looking for something else. And if your health has changed, or if you've had health issues, some pre-existing conditions are not covered. So you have to go through all of that, as opposed to if you have one that you owned, you could move from here to Minnesota or Maine or California. It won't matter, because that's a policy that you own and you can take with you anywhere. The second thing is, I found out that there's an active at work clause in a lot of policies that people are not familiar with. And what that means is, for some companies with the group life insurance, if you're not actively at work, then the company can choose not to pay out. They can also choose to change the information without your knowledge. And an example is, there was a client of ours. She got her policy with us. Her husband kept his at work. He went in the hospital and passed away due to COVID. And they sent his wife a letter that said, we're sorry for your loss, but unfortunately, because your husband was unable to return to work and work one day in his 40-hour week, we will not be paying out his claim. You understand? And so when we're reading it, of course, they, blacked out the information for the privacy of that individual. But the point is this: the fact is, he was expecting them to pay, and they did not. So not only did she lose her husband, but now she just has to figure out how to bury him. So she's back in the position that she felt like she was avoiding in that case, right? So another thing is with whole life policies, and people feeling like, whole life is the best way. Not necessarily, because if you could earn 6 or 9% interest yourself for your money, or 3% interest from the insurance company, which would you rather? And so a lot of times people don't realize that you can invest your own money and earn 6, 9, or 12%, whatever the case may be. But if you're capped at 3, and then if you tack on fees, it's like you're putting in money in a bucket, but there's a spout that's pouring it out, right? Does that make sense? So it's
Yeah.
like you think that you're building something up, but they're like, no, you got to pay these fees and you got to do all these different things. So why would you do that? And the other thing is, a lot of times with the cash value policies, you're either going to get the death benefit or the cash value, and not both. So why would you put yourself in a predicament where you're paying into something that you only receive as a living benefit and not upon your demise? So there's so much information and education that is had in that financial services world. It's just amazing. And here's the funny part: we're not taught any of it in school. They teach us how to dissect frogs and have a leaf collection and a bug collection, right? Nothing about how money works. nothing about how to create generational wealth. And that's some of the things that we do. We put together a strategy and a plan to help you get out of debt sooner, to show you what the rule of 72 is, and tell you about how these interest rates show that your compounded interest will go quicker if it's compounded versus something that's a low interest rate. Talking about putting your money in the bank, earning 0.01%. I mean, just those little simple things will
Mhm.
make the difference in whether you have financial independence at your retirement, or if
Mhm.
you're having to go back to work shortly after you retire. An example of that is this. So say a person has only $40,000 in their retirement. If you think about it, most people on average make about $40,000 a year. So if that's all that you have in your retirement, that's only 1 year of income, right? So after you've used that year of income, even if you scale back, you didn't have as many expenses. So say you had it for 2 years, then where does that leave you? So it was the difference of having $40,000
Mhm.
versus 2.5 million, based on your investments and those things. So once you know that, which would you rather, Portia? It's just a question. 1.5 million, 40,000.
Most
so
most
so
gain.
So the whole idea is just to make sure, like I said, that my team, we educate as many families as we can, and make sure that they just are aware of what they have, and
That they
that they are
benefit.
making. Would you say?
Make sure that they're the ones that benefit. Where they should.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I really enjoy it, and like I said, even with Primerica, everything that the Lord has given to me or that I'm affiliated with has to do with ministry, one way or the next. And it's so funny because you wouldn't think that it would be, right?
Right.
But even in the Primerica business, I've had to minister to my teammates. And it's just so funny because you never know. And so then I understand that it's not just to help others to educate about, financial awareness and insurance and how money works and those things, but it's also to be the light, also to show my teammates that, hey, everybody goes through something at some point, but you can be positive about it. Obstacles are made to be overcome. Challenges are made to be overcome. And it's all about how you look at things and your perception. Because here's the thing. We could both look at the same square, and you may see something different on it than me. That's just the way life is. But I've learned to find the bright side of things.
Mhm.
And so whatever happens in my life, I look for the bright side of it. What is the lesson? What am I to learn?
Mhm.
Okay, was this allowed to happen? Was it caused to happen? And I look at it from that perspective, because you have to realize someone always has it worse than you.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And so then when I think about that, then I say, is this situation really that bad? Or or is this situation really bad, because if you just talk to people and they tell you all that they've undergone in a day, you was like, oh, well, I don't have a problem. I just thought I did.
Mhm. It's about perspective.
It's about perspective. So I'm making sure that I stay in a positive way for the most part. Sometimes it gets a little difficult. That was like pulling you
Oh
this way
yeah.
and that. But the reality is this. I have daughters. I have goddaughters. I have people who look up to me in terms of, as a mentor and that kind of stuff. So I have
Mhm.
to make sure that I'm in a positive state. I even listen to waterfall sounds. I used to listen to the ocean sounds, but now I listen to the waterfall sounds because that's relaxing to me. Get a massage, go get a pedicure, go get a facial, do things for yourself. And that's the other thing, women. Take care of yourself. Because if
Mhm.
you're sick or if you are near stroke, you
Mhm.
cannot take care of everybody as
Right.
you have been, right? And so I learned that. And that's something that's, they don't remember anything else. Remember that self-care is important and it should be done at minimum on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Not once every time it's time for somebody's wedding or some kind of specific event. It's important because once you realize that you can't help the next person unless you've helped yourself, like in the airport, they tell you, put your own mask on before you try to. It's the same thing, because if you don't do that, then how can you help the next person
You can.
as much as you would like to?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just really excited about everything that's happening for you, Portia. And thank you so much for having me on. I hope I've answered your questions.
Absolutely.
But yeah, keep going, keep doing it. And this is a period of Black women. You see that we have a Black vice president. I see that there are several fire chiefs and all of those things now, right? So it's a time where we're being showcased more than we have ever been, and the positions that we haven't ever held. So that in itself should motivate women, Black women, to say, hey, it's time for me to shine.
Yep. I can be that entrepreneur I've been wanting to be. And I think that's so important to be able to realize that and believe it. Believe it when you realize it. And I thank you for joining us, Miss Kimberly. And I am going to wrap this up, guys. I want to thank everybody for joining. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that you don't miss any future updates. And until next week, see ya.
Bye.